Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Walk Show podcast, where we explore the walk of life. This is your host, Walker Neer. Thank you for continuing to listen to the Walk Show, and please tell a friend if you enjoy the show. There's a ton of sensationalism out in the world, and I really strive to keep this show grounded and honest to hopefully create something that's truly relatable. So if you find that that's your experience listening, then again, please share it with someone else that maybe doesn't already listen. We've had the opportunity on the show to hear from authors, life coaches, musicians, and many other terrific guests. Today we've got a guest that's actually talking about a subject we haven't really talked a lot about here on the Walk Show, and one that people can become pretty uncomfortable with, and that is the subject of finance, or more plainly, just money. Today's guest is a public speaker, author of the book Financial Hope: Principles for a Prosperous Financial Future, and offers short and long-term coaching for individuals, and his name is Dakota Grady. Dakota is an incredibly warm and kind soul who is spreading a simple, direct, and important message of controlling and succeeding in personal finances. Dakota is also a man of faith and combines some biblical teachings into his work. While I am openly not a Christian myself, I absolutely appreciate folks like Dakota who embody the beauty of the faith by living to help others. Dakota actually defines HOPE as an acronym meaning helping other people become empowered, which I just think is a really awesome statement. I really enjoyed the conversation with Dakota, and I think you will too. As always, the music on the show today is brought to you by Misha Zarin, so thank you so much, Misha, for providing the music. And with that, let's get on to the discussion with Dakota Grady. Welcome to the Walk Show podcast, Dakota Grady. Thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you for having me, Walker.
Yeah, for sure. So, Dakota, you're actually based out of at least close by Nashville, Tennessee. Is that right?
Yes, correct. I'm in Hendersonville. Yes.
Oh, okay. And are you from there originally?
I'm from South Carolina, but I've been in Tennessee for about 7 years.
Okay, gotcha. And yeah, so you're a man of many talents. I noticed that you do some public speaking, and then you also have written a book. Is that accurate?
Yes, correct. Yes. So I've been speaking since 2008. Did that for about a year in South Carolina through Toastmasters. Moved to Tennessee in 2013. Started speaking in 2014, and then for my business, I started speaking in about 2015, I think. So okay. I've been speaking for a while, and then my book came out last year.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty recent then.
Yes, my book came out, so the self-publishing, and I launched it last year with the ebook, and my audiobook came out in October last year.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we'll just start talking about the book, I guess, since that's a pretty recent thing. So, what is your book is called Financial Hope? Is that right?
That's correct. Principles for a Prosperous Financial Future.
Yeah. So can you maybe kind of just talk about what it is that you help people with and what you're trying to communicate with your book?
Yeah, so I know that millions of people are struggling financially. So what I do is I give them a step-by-step plan so that they can maximize their money through budgeting, crush debt because debt is a thief, and save for unexpected events because life happens, as we know, so that they can be able to invest and retire on their terms. So the book talks about those things, talks about budgeting, getting out of debt, having a rainy day plan for life, talks about investing, buying a house, insurance, purchasing. So it talks about personal finances in general. And just want to help people to eventually have their money on purpose so that they can live the life that they want.
Sure, yeah. No, I mean, I think, obviously none of us predicted the circumstance we'd find ourselves in today with the pandemic situation, but I mean, this kind of information is probably more useful now than maybe ever before, right? Or maybe it would have been more useful a few months before the pandemic hit, I guess.
I think honestly I think personal finance is something that is important like year round. Right now it's the month of April, and April is National Financial Literacy Month in the United States, it is. So I think that this is a very pivotal point in time and a very pivotal subject matter in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's strange how money works. Not how money works, but I guess what I mean to say is the way people talk about money really just kind of based on the way they grow up. I mean, my parents, for example, my mother's side of the family, her dad owned a construction company, and it wasn't like a giant firm or something, but he owned a small construction company and was, an entrepreneur and investor in the stock market. And she has siblings that went off to do things with finance. But then like my dad's side of the family, I mean, they were just blue collar workers that, did construction work and road work and that kind of stuff a lot. And my dad worked at a warehouse. So, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but just simply the way he talked about money and the way he looked at money, very different from the way that my mom's side of the family did.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just, I think interesting the way that you see people, think about it, kind of to understand it. How did you find yourself deciding to try and help people with this pretty complicated subject?
Well, my background is I grew up in a low income family. My mom would have 7 children. You probably have heard of the Brady Bunch. We're the Grady Bunch because my last name is Grady. And we grew up on welfare, which is government assistance, food stamps, and WIC. That was a time when my mom and dad took my sister, my brothers, and me over my grandmother's house because our power got disconnected. And that's one reason why I do what I do. Second reason why I do what I do is because the welfare, for me, I felt so ashamed. I love to eat food, but going to the store to get food with food stamps made me feel so shameful. Mm-hmm. So that's my other why. And my third and fourth why is I have a wife and a daughter. My wife is my third why. We've been married for 12 years now.
Congratulations.
And my fourth why, thank you, is my daughter. She's turning 4 years old yesterday. So those are my 4 whys why I teach this stuff, because I know that people are struggling financially. I grew up struggling financially, and I don't want people to go through what I went through. And it's not how much money people make, it's how well they manage what they make.
Sure.
That's important.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think what are some top mistakes that you see people making regarding, managing their money? Is there a common theme that you see, or is it just kind of every individual is different?
I think it depends on the person. And I think, honestly, it has to be a deep, burning desire to want to handle money on purpose, because someone may make 6 figures and be broke as a joke.
Right.
Someone may be living minimum wage and be disciplined, saving, have a rainy day fund, because that person has a desire to prosper financially. He or she may not make the best money, but they know how to handle the money properly. And I had a guy tell me one time before, he was like a small business owner in Hendersonville. He told me that he didn't have any debt, so he didn't need to do a budget. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Everybody needs a budget. I mean, nobody is exempt from doing a budget.
Right. So you think that people's just the lack of budget is really probably the biggest mistake that people consistently make?
I would say that, and I think the desire to budget, because budgeting, I mean, it's honestly, budgeting is simple. I was teaching a class in Nashville, Tennessee area, and they told me the stuff I'm teaching is basically elementary. And
sure.
People think that things have to be so complicated with this. It's not that hard to do. It's simple. If people can do 3 minus 2 equals 1, they can do a budget. But the hard part is doing the budget. You have to want to control your finances. If you don't have that desire, it's like losing weight. If you have friends that you need to stop hanging around with, or you need to stop smoking cigarettes, if you don't want to do those things, there's no point. Same thing with your money. If you don't want to do a budget, your budget will be broke, because according to Career Builder, 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And I wholeheartedly believe why they live paycheck to paycheck, because 1, they don't do a budget, and 2, they don't make enough money.
Right. Right. But like you said, I mean, really, even more than how much they make, just the way that they, manage that maybe matters even more. Yeah, I think that, so, personally, I've been someone that, not to, to get too personal, I guess, but, I'm someone that's carried debt really throughout my life. I've always been able to manage it. Mm-hmm. But I can trace it, like I said earlier, I can trace it back to, and not that I'm a 36-year-old man, so I'm certainly responsible for my own decisions and choices at this point. But but I can just kind of trace it back to the way that, again, my dad, especially, how he looked at money and managed it, I guess you could say. And we didn't have explicit conversations, but it's just kind of watching those habits and watching those things. Whereas my mom, my dad was someone who he was willing to spend money that maybe he shouldn't have. And he didn't, it wasn't like some extravagant thing, but we probably ate out when we shouldn't have sometimes, and that sort of stuff, whereas my mom was much more frugal.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, I always had, I don't know, I guess this kind of sentiment that like it wasn't nearly as much fun to be frugal.
Mm.
But that's not true. That's only true in good times, right? Like, because when the rainy day comes, then it's not real fun to not have been frugal ahead of that.
Well, I want to talk about the part about people watching their parents. So my mom and dad didn't teach me how to handle money as a gift that came to me easily. But people do watch their parents spend money. And I believe there comes a point in time, like you said, you're an adult now, to say, all right, is what they did, is that the right way to do something? Whether it may be handling money, having a good relationship with people, is that the right way to do this? If not, then it's time for me to change what I'm doing, because although my parents may have not been known what to do, I guess the right way, or something that they weren't taught, it's time for me to change that thing, to change the dynamic of my family and say, all right, I want my kids to handle money properly. So although my dad was a spender, my mom was frugal, I think my mom's way was better because we were able to save money and have money when things worked, when we went through bad times, opposed to going out to eat all the time like with dad. So for me personally, I want to teach my daughter how to handle money on purpose, because I want her to have some things. I want her to be able to live the life fully and be able to help people in the process, not to struggle financially like we did growing up.
I've got some other friends that are much more fiscally responsible than I am, and they've introduced me to things throughout the years. Probably the one that stands out the most is like Rich Dad Poor Dad. Is that a book that resonates with you at all?
Yes, I've actually read that book before.
It just kind of has similar, I guess, ideas or similar thoughts about the importance of budgeting and the importance of kind of taking control and the discipline that you're speaking to that's kind of required. So it just kind of reminded me of that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, I don't mean it as if, that it's not original. So in the last year or so, I've really delved a lot into personal development stuff. Self-help, it's called often. But I don't like that phrase because I think it carries a lot of negative connotation with it. But the reason that it does, that people don't like the term self-help, is because they think that it's all cliches, or it's all, information that's already known.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that to some extent that is kind of true. However, it's because if something is true, there's not another way to make it true. You know what I mean? Like there's just a way things are, and that's just kind of what it is. And so I think there's actually a lot of value in people, like, for example, if maybe some of the ideas that you have are similar to some of the ideas in Rich Dad Poor Dad, I don't think that that's a downside at all. I think if anything, it establishes credibility for the idea. It's consensus, and your voice is going to be different than Robert Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like the way you approach it's going to be different. So maybe Rich Dad Poor Dad didn't resonate with one person, but then here you come with a different spin on kind of some of the same ideas, and now it can resonate, with another person that, like I said, maybe had even been exposed to it before, but hadn't heard it before. So,
and I agree. I mean, because nothing is new under the sun.
Right.
Robert Kiyosaki has his own story. I have my own story. you have your own story, and everybody else has their own story, and everyone has something that they can learn from somebody else. So if I'm good with money and someone else isn't good with money, and the person can relate to me or I can relate to that person, he or she can purchase my book, say, yeah, I can resonate with him. I go with what he's talking about and follow his principles.
Mm-hmm.
Opposed, somebody else may say, I don't like the way Dakota Grady said something about budgeting. I'm going to do it the way Robert Kiyosaki says, because even though it's the same concept, I rather do it the way Robert says opposed to Dakota.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, beyond writing the book, you also do public speaking. What kind of public and speaking engagements are you involved with?
So I've spoken to two women-owned businesses recently. This was last year in Nashville, Tennessee, and one was Mount Juliet, Tennessee, which is outside of Nashville. Spoken
Okay.
to colleges. I've spoken to my alma mater in Berea, Kentucky, which is Berea College. Go BC. I've spoken to Vol State. It's a volunteer state community college in Gallatin, Tennessee. I spoke there actually twice. I'm speaking there hopefully this summer as well. And so I've spoken to churches, one in South Carolina, one in Nashville, Tennessee, and there's some conferences as well. Spoken at, say, a payroll conference, a social welfare conference. So I'm doing just a variety of things, but mostly people who have come to my classes or have purchased my products have been females. And I mean, I've taught some guys, I've coached some guys who have attended my classes, but mostly it's females who are the ones who show up or purchase my products and services.
That's interesting. I just wouldn't have guessed that. Not that I would have guessed that it would have been more men, but I just would have thought it would be more of a, I don't know, just kind of a 50-50 mix,
Mm-hmm.
Well, so when you do the public speaking engagements, especially when you're traveling, away from your local area where you live, I mean, have you had any kind of connections with people from the audience that came out of that? I mean, any any story where someone runs from the crowd and is so excited that they've learned what they've learned? I've never done anything like that, so I don't really know, I guess, what it would be like to travel around and deliver speeches like that.
So when I was in South Carolina at a church, and a lady told me basically that information was me. It was very, very needed because people do need stuff. People, even though it's taught everywhere, I'm sure people need help with personal finances. So this people telling me that what I'm talking about is needed and it's excellent in terms of how I present things and the information is solid. It gives me hope that I'm doing something right, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I was excited to have you come on the show. I've had life coaches. I've had a psychologist on the show. I've had just the most recent episode that I came out with, which that won't be true when this episode airs, but whatever. Was with a girl that does a podcast where she does guided meditations. I've tried to have people on that kind of promote something positive. And I think that when it comes to, I guess I need to get a actual physical trainer or something on here, but everyone understands, like, if you want to be not just lose weight, but if you want to have good physical health, then you would need to go work out, right? Like you would need, or watch what you eat. Like you would need to take certain measures to secure a certain physical level of well-being. And I think with mental health, we're in a place right now where that's also true, where it's like, if you really want to be in a good mentally healthy space on a consistent basis, you've got to, quote unquote, go to the gym, whether that be doing, personal routines or maybe talking with a coach or a therapist or a counselor or whatever that may be. But I think that there's a lot of value in trying to be consistent with making oneself feel better. Now, I don't mean that as a cure to all mental illness or anything. I'm not speaking about it from that perspective, but anyway, I say all of that to say that I think when it comes to finance, and it's kind of something you've already hit on, it's probably just true there as well, right? Like if you want to be financially healthy, you kind of got to go to the gym. Like there's just a certain amount of consistent effort that you have to put into managing that in order to keep it, in a good maintained shape.
It's true. And that consistency comes in my opinion, with doing budgeting. You do a budget every single month because every month is different. And when you budget, you're basically telling your money what to do. So I tell people you budget like a boss because your money is your employee. It's working for you. And the way you get it to work for you is you tell it what to do. So you tell it to give, save, and spend. And once you start doing it consistently, it becomes a habit. You do it for 90 days, and you say, well, what has changed in my spending? Am I more accountable? Am I overspending in, I would say, go dining out? Am I overspending on just shoes, clothes? Am I overspending
Mm-hmm.
on my house? Do I have too much house? The budget gives you boundaries, and it keeps
Mm-hmm.
you fit, financially fit, basically. But it's financially fit for your finances, though.
Right, right. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Like I said, no one would think it was weird to talk about like, yeah, if you want to be able to be in any kind of shape, like you got to go to the gym once in a while or go on a walk once in a while. I mean, just the gym, but whatever, you've got to engage physically in order to keep that. But then when you talk about it in the space of like that, like, oh, well, you've got to budget regularly and look at, and actually pay attention to where the money's going and what you're doing with it and think about it and analyze it and evaluate it. No, obviously not everyone, but a lot of people will kind of look at you like, well, that's boring, or why would I want to do that, right?
Yes. And then I'll say, I guess you like being broke then.
Right, right.
Because some
Right.
people,
Well,
they think they have it in their head. I'm like, well, it's better to write things down. That way you can see what's actually happening. And you can measure it. Every month you can measure it. I mean, my wife and I, we do a budget every month, and we're old school. We use a budget online as well, but we also do a form that is written. So we do our checkbook every month to make sure what's in our account is on our check register as well. So we know where money's going every month. I mean, look at the budget, look at our check register. We can see where our money's going every month.
right. Well, that's interesting. You brought that up because that's just what I was going to ask. Is do you do a written one, or so? What do you have a software that you suggest that people check out for budgeting?
Well, I mean, there are things out there. Every Dollar, Mint is one. YNAB, I think that means you need a budget, I believe. So different things out there that you can use.
Yeah, I personally use YNAB, which now it's a monthly subscription fee, but I bought it when it was just a standalone application. So I'm technically using an older version, but it does everything I need. Honestly, though, I don't know that it does anything more than what Mint offers, and Mint is free. So probably people should check that out if they're looking for one, because again, I don't know what YNAB offers for the for the fee that's superior to Mint, but
Yes.
something perhaps.
Yeah, so I actually don't have a budget in terms of when it's like online yet, but that's something that I would like to do though in the future.
So when you're doing these different speaking engagements, and you'd mentioned earlier that most of your clients, seem to be female largely. What kind of age ranges are you seeing? Are you seeing young people, older people, middle-aged people, or a healthy mix, or what do you see there?
It's a mixture. I've coached a lady who was 19 years old up to a lady who was in her 50s. And then people who attend my classes, it's just a variety of ages. So maybe people in their 20s up to their maybe 50s. So just a
Awesome.
mixture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I was curious just because, you kind of get, on the one hand, a younger person could benefit from it tremendously because if they start early with good habits, then they might set themselves up for a huge amount of success later. Right.
Yes,
Uh,
that's correct.
but that being said, even if you're someone who's in your 50s or 60s or whatever the case may be, you could still come out better off than you would without learning these principles and applying these things.
Yes, that's right. I agree with you.
Yeah. Um, well, so we've talked about your book that you wrote. We've talked about your public speaking, but you also do one-on-one coaching. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
So is that something that you're doing just locally in the kind of greater Nashville area, or is that something that's available to people from anywhere?
So for anywhere, actually, at clients in South Carolina, I did a session via Skype. So
Oh, cool.
location is not an issue.
Well, that's awesome. I guess now, even if you didn't want to use Skype before, you'd have to be now, right? Even if it was just local.
Yes.
Well, so I was looking, so you've also got a website, dakotagrady.com, which I encourage everyone to go check out. But I was looking at that before we'd spoken today, and I did see a line that I noticed that you kind of have some biblical teachings, or you've kind of tied some faith-based ideas into your financial education. Is that right?
Yes, correct. So basically, I want to help people to maximize their money so they can help other people, but also become who God created them to become. Because I believe that when people have their finances in order, they're able to relax, focus on their dreams, whether it be their job or their business idea, and to just pursue life wholeheartedly and become who God created them to become. And then when their cup is filled up, they can have the overflow and give it to somebody else who needs help as well.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a very, very true and powerful thing. I am not not a naturally charitable person, I guess. I don't know. I like to think that I'm an empathetic person, but only in the last couple of years did I start volunteering and donating money to my local food bank. Ozarks Food Harvest here is the local thing, but I was just blown away by how frankly, how good it feels to help out with an organization like that, and to help people who are in need. Because you're absolutely right. Whenever you're comfortable and you're good, if you will, it does give you an opportunity to help other people. And there's a lot of power in that. I mean, that's something that I've seen people talking about, how to fend off anxiety during this pandemic when everyone's locked up. And it's like trying to find a way to help someone else. Because it's amazing how much satisfaction you can get from helping someone else out, not even just yourself.
Correct. I mean, honestly, that's what life's about, helping other people. Like the word hope means, this is something that I came up with, helping other people become empowered, HOPE. And I'm going to add to that, helping other people become empowered through personal finances. So basically, when people become empowered, again, their needs are met, they're able to become empowered to help people in the process and help people to become who they were created to become as well.
Right. Well, that's really cool. Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, I had a psychologist on the show, I don't know, a few weeks ago or so now, but, and she's a psychologist, a professional doctor, all that, but she also kind of ties her faith into her work. And I think it's really interesting because I think that, in the space of psychology, that can get a bad rap in some religious communities because it's seen as trying to subvert maybe, a natural order of things. And I think, again, I'm speculating to some extent, but I think when it comes to personal finance, people might have the impression that, it wouldn't be God's work to deal with money like that or something. Right. But, but I think the opposite of that is true because of exactly what you're talking about. I mean, the truth is that money is is just an idea, really, right? But it's just
Yes.
a vehicle. It's not an end game. The point isn't to accrue a bunch of money. The point would be to have resources to help other people or whatever thing it may be, but it's in service of something, not just the money itself. So.
Correct. I mean, it's good to have money because if you think about it, everything costs money. Bills, food, cars.
Right.
When you have a job, you gotta pay your people, pay your vendors. I mean, everything costs money. You don't want to worship money, but money is something that we need in this world. So why not handle it in a way that you can accumulate a lot of wealth and then be able to give it to somebody else? I mean, not all of it, but give some of it away. Because honestly, I mean, everyone's going to pass away from this planet. So we can't take anything with us, whether it be money, cars, clothes, our friends. So why not handle money on purpose, be able to help people in the process, and again, become who they were created to become? Because when you give, like you mentioned earlier, I mean, it feels good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And right now would be a great time because here in Tennessee, we had tornadoes recently,
Oh, man.
Nashville, Chattanooga. I mean, even the floods. See, we had the hurricane in the Bahamas. I mean, so many things that happened. And if people are financially sound, they aren't struggling financially, they can be able to give more to organizations, whether it be their time or their money.
Yeah, well, and something I keep bringing up for whatever reason is mental health, but I think that I know at times in my life when I've been really broke or really been facing financial hardship, it doesn't just make whatever circumstance that is hard. It affects everything. It affects my mood, my mentality about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just you've got this weight on your shoulders. You got this bear on your back, and everything, you start looking at everything through that lens. And so I think that, it's kind of in the way that there's like an interconnection between mental health and physical health. Like if you go for a walk, maybe that'll help reduce anxiety or something. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think taking control of your financial situation, I mean, even though myself, again, I definitely still have debt and I'm not a picture perfect person to follow for financial advice, but the reason that I started budgeting honestly was because I got tired of being at a point where, like, when I handed my debit card to the cashier, I didn't know for sure if it was going to work or not, because I had a loose idea of what money's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And shifted to actual doing a budget, and it just made me so much more comfortable to understand what the numbers are, which, to your point earlier, is not complex. I mean, I don't do any algebra to do that, right?
Exactly.
It's really just a check register, but
And that's the thing. I mean, the personal finance is tied to your mental health as well because you're thinking about money.
yep.
If you're worried about your finances on your job, you're stressed out. You're not focusing on serving your clients, so you're focusing on how I'm gonna pay my bills. Do I have enough money in my checking account to pay this particular item I'm going to purchase? You're worried, so your productivity at work goes down, and you're coming home from work, and if you're married, you're stressed out. So you probably get in an argument with your spouse about money, or if you're single, in order to cover up your sadness or your worry, you probably go overspend because you're not accountable. When you're married, in my opinion, the husband and the wife should hold each other accountable by doing the budget. And I think if people did a budget as a couple, as married couples, men and women, marriage would be so much better. And if somebody was single, having somebody hold you accountable to that would reduce stress in your life, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, right.
Right? So it goes hand in hand. If you want to reduce stress, if you want to have a great marriage, do a budget. And I tell the people that three reasons why I'm still married, and I attribute to one, God, my faith in Jesus Christ. Secondly, communication. And third, a budget. If you want a great marriage, do a budget. Whether you're single, do a budget.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, people worry about, do we like the same movies, or do we want to go eat at the same restaurant or whatever? And not that there's not importance to that stuff, but being on the same page with, how you're going to keep the lights on, or maybe it's not that dire. Maybe how you're going to go on a vacation that you both want to go on or something, but being in line on that, it makes sense that it would be significant, because it's a significant thing we're talking about.
Yes, it is. It is. And I mean, I think that people just did the simple stuff, like a budget every month, then life would be so much better for them, because they know where their money's going and not stressed out. Because it affects their mental health. Like you mentioned, the mental health is affected because things happen, and it's all in our psyche. I mean, like fear, worry, and doubt, it's in our mind. So if we can control that by taking action with our finances, taking action with having an accountability partner, taking action with working out, being healthy, and if we have issues, talk to somebody about it. Our spouse, if we have an issue with our spouses, talk to your spouse, whether you're a man or woman. If you have issues in any area, talk to your spouse about it. Or if you're single, talk to your accountability partner. Somebody will tell you no in love when it comes to your finances. Someone's going to hold you accountable to spending wisely, or somebody's going to hold you accountable to not overspending, going out to eat, going to the club at night when you should be at home doing your budget.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, though. I mean, the truth is that doing a budget, I mean, maybe the very first time you do it, it's going to take a while to kind of set up categories and kind of make sure that you've accounted for things. But once you get in a routine of it, there's not really, I mean, it's not like it's an 8-hour work effort to, to fill out the budget for a month.
Correct. Exactly. I agree. I mean, it becomes a habit once you start doing it over time. And for me, it's automatic. I mean, we do one every month. My wife and I, we take turns doing it, and it has helped our marriage. And also having a rainy day fund in place too. Having money saved, because life happens. Last year I had my appendix removed. It was unexpected.
Right.
So we had money saved for that unexpected event. We've had cars stop working. We lost jobs. It's like, but we know things happen. We still do a budget, and we still have money saved in the bank. So we replenish the money, we'll pay the bill, whether it be car repair or a new purchase of a car, and we replenish that money, and life keeps moving on. But if we don't have that money in place, what will we do? Go borrow money. And actually, my wife and I were debt free. We didn't have any debt, so we have savings. We have things saved for retirement. So I'm like, that's where I want to be, and I want to help people get there as well.
I can probably guess, but I would still ask you to elaborate a bit. But I mean, what's your opinion of credit cards and credit card debt?
All right, so great question.
Right. I'll lob it in there for you.
All right, thank you. Well, let me give you some information about myself. I used to be an auditor for a debt buyer. So say you have Sears.
Wow.
Yes. And say Sears had some credit card. And if they didn't get those paid, they would sell that particular debt to a company called, say, Resurgent Capital Services, a former employee in South Carolina. So Resurgent would place those old debts with collection agencies. My job was to go audit the collection agencies to make sure that they were doing what they're supposed to do with the money. And I had a credit card. I was traveling for the company. I would get reimbursed for my expenses. So I would pay my credit card off every month because I was savvy with that. But then I heard about basically using cash. I'm like, really? So I tried it, and that was 2008, I believe. And I haven't used a credit card since then. So I've been debt free since 2013, and I haven't had a credit card since 2008, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured you'd say. Well, and I think, I mean, I think that the credit cards can, on the one hand, they can provide a lot of convenience, right?
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
so it's not that there's no value to them, but I think that most people that get credit cards, and so I used to work for a credit card company a long time ago now, but worked at the call center, and so I became very intimately familiar with their policies and their procedures and how things work out,
Mm-hmm.
and and yeah, I mean, most people just don't actually know the terms of the deal that they're doing, and like
Mm-hmm.
what I always do is like if the terms of the credit card were just a guy that lived in your neighborhood, like so you go borrow money from the credit card and they give you this pamphlet of terms that no one reads and everyone just
Mm-hmm.
goes, yeah, it's fine, and then later they're disappointed when when they get robbed basically by the credit card company.
Yes.
Um, but it's like, but if it was a guy in your neighborhood who loaned money and you went to him and he just told you the terms that the credit card has written in the pamphlet, no one would do business with the guy loaning money out of his house. It's too crazy. You know what I mean? Like if the guy told you, yeah, I'll give you 0%, but if you're ever late, even by a single day, I'm going to jack the rate to 30%.
Mm-hmm.
No one
Mm-hmm.
would take that deal. They would be like, that's a terrible idea. Why would I agree to that? You're trying to hustle me, but
Correct.
then the credit card companies put it in, I guess fancier language, and so then people don't see it.
Yes. I mean, I don't believe in debt. Only debt I believe in is getting a house. But even then, I mean, pay off debt ASAP because debt is a thief. Because people have dreams, hopes, and desires, and when you got a car payment, a student loan payment, a title loan payment, a mortgage payment, and you lose your job with no savings, what do you do then? What do you do with no savings? At least if you had savings, you could say 3 months or 9 months of savings, you could weather the storm. But no savings, what are you gonna do? Borrow more money? How are you gonna pay the money back if you don't have income coming in?
Right.
Right? So if you have no debt, you lose your job, you got say 9 months of expenses saved, just for example. Or I should go on the low end, at least 3 months of expenses, 3 to 9 months. That's what I recommend, right? What if you
Mm,
got money saved and you lose your job or you lose your business during this time right now, the coronavirus? You can
yep.
survive for 3 months, right? Because this thing isn't gonna last forever. You can have money saved, pay your payments for your mortgage, your rent, your food, take care of your family for a short period of time. Again, because this thing isn't gonna last forever, and then you can get back on your feet. Not have to worry about people getting phone calls from you or people calling you by your credit card not being
Right.
paid, right? It's less stress, but people are teaching people to borrow money, to use OPM, other people's money.
Right.
I say use YM, use your money. Because if you start a business with your money and you don't get clients right away, you don't have to worry about paying that SBA loan because you don't have any debt. You use your money from your side. Well, if you have a full-time job and you have a side hustle, you still have money to pay for things. Say if you need to go get some prints or pay for your hotel, you got money to pay for that. But if you are leveraging your business right away, you're not serving your clients because once you get that money, who do you pay first? The credit card company, or you pay the mortgage lender for the loan you put on the building, or you get that SBA loan, you got to pay the bank back for that money you borrowed to get that equipment. But you
Yep.
don't have any clients yet, though. So pay cash for everything. And if you can pay cash for a house, do it. Pay cash for your business, pay cash for your car, your clothes, everything. I believe in living debt free because debt is a thief.
Yeah. No. I mean, there's clearly some truth to that. It honestly, someone who's a well-respected businessman on Shark Tank, right? Mark Cuban. I've heard him say exactly the same thing that you just did. That starting a business with debt with a loan is crazy because of
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a lot harder um, to give the business time to grow because
Mm-hmm.
you've got bills due today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe the business would be fine if you could take a few months to let it grow, which you could do if it wasn't something that you were starting with a loan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you start with a loan, you just basically added an enormous amount of pressure, and it might be what breaks you, or breaks the business at least.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
so that's fair. So, and I really appreciate you taking so much time to chat with me this evening. One final thing I was going to ask you about is just, what are your thoughts on investing? Do you encourage people to try and do investing at all, or what are your thoughts there?
So yes, I do. But first, I want people to have the foundation, budgeting
Sure.
first, get out of debt. Secondly, pay off all your credit cards, student loans, pay all everything off. Then once you pay all your consumer debt off, save your rainy day fund from. I recommend starting up with $500 to $1,500. Pay off your debt, and then increase that from $1,500 to 3 to 9 months of living expenses. Because life happens to us right now. We're in a pandemic right now. Tornadoes, hurricanes, job losses, business losses. Life happens. So
I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead. I mean to cut you off.
having that money saved is very important. And then once you have those things in place, your budget, out of debt, rainy day fund, I recommend then start investing, saving between 10 and 15% of your income. Because if you don't have any debt, you can invest more money, right?
Yeah, well, and especially when it comes to debt, I mean, the interest rates on most debt is higher than the than the rate of return you're going to get on investments generally. I mean, I remember when I was probably 20 or something, I talked to my mom about I was going to start investing in the stock market, and she said, "Well, do you have any credit card debt?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And she said, "Well, you've got to pay that off first, because you're not going to make more as a percentage annually on investing than you are owing on the credit card." You know what I mean? So,
Yes, because I actually saw one person had a credit card with like 28% interest rate on it. I said, "Oh, that's crazy."
Insane.
I mean, like that's crazy. And the stock market has averaged like 10%, according to
Right.
investopedia.com. So
Yep.
it makes sense to pay it off and then invest that money that you would have been spending on credit cards into the stock market.
This is completely really unrelated. I mean, it's kind of related, but I was so blown away by this, and we're having a conversation about money, so I'll share it. So I got a check in the mail last year, not a check actually, but it looks like a check, right? For like $500, I think. Now, again, it's not really a check. It's like a just a piece of marketing, an ad that it looks like a check, and then you take it and cash it or whatever, and it's really a loan, right? And it was evil, because it was right around Christmas, and the language in the letter that it came with was like, "Oh, do you need some extra money to buy, gifts for your family or whatever?" Like, really hitting people in a bad spot, in my opinion. And then but anyway, and so it's like, take this and sign here, and you can have $500. And man, I flipped it over to look, and I mean, I wasn't actually going to pursue it, but I was just curious to see what the terms were. The APR on this was 130%.
Are you serious?
Now, it's because there's like a bunch of fees stacked in, so kind of like a car title loan thing or whatever.
Wow.
But again, and not that I'm like some guru or something, I'm clearly not. But again, because I think of my background in working in credit card companies, like, I always am interested to see what the terms are. But, a lot of people don't look at that stuff. And it's like, I just couldn't believe that someone would send out a loan offer and have the audacity to print on the back that it's 130%. Like, get out of here. Like, again, I don't have some larger point other than I was just shocked that even existed. And honestly appalled that there are people out there who are preying on people that are in a needy spot and probably don't have the financial education or understanding to know to look at the back of the page and read what the APR is. Maybe they don't know what the APR is, And my point just being like, and again, it's for $500, so it's not even for some huge amount of money. Like, so people just beware if someone's trying to offer you a loan. Like, to your point of the debt is the thief, like, well, if you signed up for that loan, you definitely are getting robbed. It's crazy. Like,
That's
right?
true.
But anyway.
That's why it's important to understand, then buy.
Right.
Understand what you're purchasing, then make the purchase. If you don't understand it, then don't buy it. That's simple.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure it is. Well, Dakota Grady, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Again, your book is Financial Hope, and I apologize if you'd like to say it, because I know there's a subtitle there as well. But what is the name of your book one more time?
Yes, the title of the book is Financial Hope, Principles for a Prosperous Financial Future. You can find it online at dakotagrady.com. Click on the online store. You can also get a copy of it on Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon.
Awesome. So it's available as a physical book, but you can also get it on like a Kindle, like an ebook?
Yes, you can get the ebook available on Barnes & Noble.
Awesome. Well, again, Dakota Grady, website is dakotagrady.com, the book, Financial Hope. And again, you're offering coaching sessions, like you said earlier, to people. They don't have to be from Tennessee. They can be anywhere, and you can Skype with them and meet and coach with them that way as well.
That's correct, yes. And you can find that information online at the online store, dakotagrady.com. I also have a 7-week course called, I'm going to rebrand it, but it's called the Dakota Grady System, Your Way to Wealth Academy.
Okay. So if people want to sign up for a longer term kind of class that they would go through, or kind of a workshop that's on a continual basis, you've got that as well.
Yes, correct, yes. They can find it on my website as well.
Awesome. Well, Dakota, again, I really appreciate you joining the show this evening. And I will make sure and include links to your website and everything in the show notes. So listeners, you can find the information there. And if anyone has any questions, Dakota is available. You can email him directly, but also if for some reason you wanted to email me, I'd be more than happy to pass you along to Dakota if you've got questions for him. Again, thank you so much for your time, Dakota. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Walker.
All right, folks. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you again to Dakota Grady for coming on the show. And thank you, as always, to Misha for providing the music. And thank you, of course, listener, for listening to the episode. As always, I invite you to follow me on social media. I'm available on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at The Walk Show. Twitter, it's The Walk Show Pod. You can always email me at walker@thewalkshowpodcast.com if you've got thoughts, questions, ideas, anything you'd like to bring. I'd be happy to interact with you on that. I also want to give a shout out to my other podcast, Pick Up Your Sticks, which I co-host with Brett Lindley. Pick Up Your Sticks is a gaming podcast where we talk about video games, but we really talk about why gaming matters. Gaming is something that Brett and I have done since we were kids, and something that's really important to us. And so instead of just doing news and reviews, which there's some of that in there as well, we really try and focus just on the emotional connections we have with gaming, and again, why it really matters to us. So if you enjoy the Walk Show and the kind of long-form discussions we have here, then I strongly encourage you to check out Pick Up Your Sticks, which is available everywhere podcasts are found. Thanks so much again. Stay up. Have a good week.